liberties is a big thing too. And I wanted to talk to you about that because, as you know, with this pandemic, when there comes crisis, that's when the powers that be like to take away our rights. And nobody pays attention because everybody is so scared and they're worried about their safety. And so they're willing to concede their liberty and to have their safety. And I see that. I remember it after 9/11. I don't know how old you are and like where you were politically when that happened, but I read the Patriot Act. I actually read it. Most people in Congress that signed it didn't read it. And yet they signed it. And nobody still even really talks about that we gave up our 4th, 5th, and 6th Amendment rights. Obama extended it. We still haven't gotten them back, by the way. And we just go on like business as usual and no one talks about it. And that's very frustrating to me. And I see more of an encroachment at every opportunity. COVID's no exception. I'm not an anti-vaxxer. I'm not a, whatever. But when we start talking about things like mandates and things like anything that I feel is controlling people's civil liberties that it's not something that's in the best interest of everybody, is an invasion of my civil liberties. If these vaccines were sterility vaccines like smallpox and such, and they absolutely stop the spread of the virus, then you would have somewhat of an argument that your existence, it affects other people and you've got it, we got it, and get it. But it doesn't, people. It's like a flu shot. Accept that. And so forcing that, it freaks me out about civil liberties. So, and this is where I really do feel like a libertarian, where I'm just like, let COVID thin the herd, people. Let it thin the herd. Does it ever occur to anybody that that's what it's supposed to do? I mean, is that like a horrible thing to say? You know what I mean? That's my libertarian in me. It is. I'm like, you know what?
Yeah. If you ever run again, they're going to nail you.
I don't care. I believe in natural selection. And if a virus doesn't qualify as natural selection, then I don't know what
I got into a conversation with my father not too long ago because his girlfriend has a pre-existing condition that could definitely harm her. And their attitude was, well, everyone needs to be vaccinated because it'll stop the spread. I said, listen, you should absolutely get vaccinated, especially if your health is called into question. But it is not a vaccine. It is a booster shot, and it does not stop the spread. No. Can it somewhat slow the spread? That remains to be seen. But all things indicate that this is a way to take care of your own personal health. We cannot survive as a nation if we think that any form of totalitarianism can be acceptable. It cannot be. And that is what happens in China, to a lesser extent in Russia. And if we are to distinguish ourselves from the other two global superpowers, because let's face it, it's us and them, that's the whole world. And we basically have proxies all over the place. If we're going to distinguish ourselves in any way, we cannot be a country that gives up liberty for security. It's not possible. And that, I think, is the distinction that I think a lot of progressives share, but I think they're afraid to share because of how powerful the corporate liberal narrative is. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think there are a lot of progressives, that I follow that are able to speak and articulate just like you both did. That is right up the wheelhouse of my channel. And it is my number one concern. I can't even, I used to talk about Medicare for all. I can't even talk about it anymore. Until we get this foundation of our liberties underhand and out of the way of the government mandating and now doing vaccine passports and all this other stuff, I can't talk about other things until we get the fundamentals down. And that's the Constitution. And I think that is the unifying factor that we're seeing here between my channel and yours right now. Is the unifying defining document is the Constitution. And I think hypothetically, you talk about treatments for a disease. I don't want to get the channel in trouble. You say hypothetically, I trust people to make the decision. If the government works on a medication, if the medication is good for the people will use it. You won't need to force anybody. Like if you have zombies running around outside, nobody's going to go outside. You don't need the government to tell you to stay inside. It's just common sense. So I trust people to make the right decisions. And I'm fine with the government recommendations, guidelines, all that. But when you start saying you have to do this and it's against the Constitution, I call it an attack on Western culture. What we're seeing, you might have heard this phrase a lot, give up your liberties for the greater good of society.
Right.
That is a collective mindset state that is against Western culture. And I don't know if it's a conspiracy or what, but the bottom line is it's an attack on Western society.
Yeah, I just want to clarify, like, when it comes to, like, we have schools obviously require vaccinations. Schools require, measles, mumps, polio, whatever it is. And I don't have a problem with that. And I don't have a problem with that because those are all sterility vaccines. And so we know they work, and we know they keep everything away, and you can waiver out. You can waiver out for different reasons. It's not like an absolute thing. And also we're talking about children that are under the age of 18. And it's kind of like, yeah, we're allowed to sort of do that to you. We just are. I'm a parent, so that's just the way it works. But as long as people have the option to opt out and, whatever, then I'm fine with it. For ones that are sterility, and it does matter. It makes a huge difference.
And it takes.
But here's the other, and here's the other part of that is those were all passed via legislation. Every state passed those via laws. Right now, to my knowledge, no state has passed one law on the pandemic. It's all been
That's a really
mayoral.
Good point.
It's all been mayoral and gubernatorial edicts, emergency orders, and we're going on 2 years now. So we've completely lost representation in this country, and that's not a right thing, left thing. That's just a thing that we have to get back into control.
When the affluent white suburbanite housewives,
I hate that. I'm not a housewife.
Get upset and get uncomfortable, there is hell to pay. And this is where a lot of it stems from. There is shame culture. There is this sense of I'm better than you and I know what's good for you. And I am going to make your life a living hell because I have all the time in the world because of how comfortable I am, to basically see to it that that is the case. I have always maintained, and I will always say this, and I know there are not a lot of people who want to hear it, but the most dangerous racist in society is not the Confederate flag waving Looney Tune who shows up. It is.
That's what he's going to say.
It is the suburbanite housewife who lives comfortably in a gated community.
Not gated anymore.
Like the lady who was in Central Park, if you remember, the black gentleman who was filming her abusing her dog.
Oh yeah,
and it's like that person is emblematic of the problem, because that's the person
Karen,
who will say, "You better be vaccinated, otherwise you're never going to eat in this restaurant. You're never going to be accepted in this town." We mentioned on our last podcast how right after Trump won, you had 1 million of them plus with their pink hats on marching on the Capitol. For what? Because they were upset?
Their feelings were hurt.
What if you marched for Medicare for all or a Green New Deal? What if you actually marched for something that could help people?
Where are you now that we need to get the voting rights thing? I mean, like any of it, but no, a pink vagina hat, that'll do it. We could just all do that. Yeah.
And that is that liberal culture that we talk about.
I'm not those people, though.
But the problem is that is what lives around our country's political epicenters. That is what lives around Washington, D.C., and that is what lives around New York City.
And that is who votes.
And that is who votes.
Yep.
Thanks for watching. If you want to support our mission to transform politics into service, please like this video, subscribe, follow us on social media, and consider joining our Patreon, where you'll get early access to our interviews as well as other exclusive content. Links are in the description. Peace out.